Good morning. This is Ron. It is Friday, March 23rd. Welcome to Story Time. And today I'm going to be reading from, this is a Storytime Extra, from Popular Mechanics, and it is an article entitled The Cadillac of Self-Driving Cars. It's amazing that any of us can drive a car. Driving requires complex motor skills, finely honed inference, and the ability to act on incomplete information. Considering that nothing in human evolution prepared us to hustle across the planet at 70 miles an hour, it's a long shot that we ever make it from the driveway to the grocery store. But we take it for granted that we can do this, that driving is even kind of easy. An autonomous car, then, should also make driving look easy, and that, as it turns out, is really hard. Cadillac's new Super Cruise system, available in the CT6 for $71,300, can take full control of the car on divided highways with no cross streets, as in your ultra tedious interstates and major highways. When I first engaged Super Cruise on I-95 South and the car starts steering itself, I am agog with wonder. For the first time in my life, I'm a passenger in a car that doesn't have anyone else in it. I've driven, this is a step beyond the other semi-autonomous cars. I've driven all of which undercut this magic by requiring you to keep a hand on the wheel for quick intervention. Instead, the Caddy flows along at 75 miles an hour, driving so well that nobody notices that my hands are folded behind my headrest, a rolling Turing test. It makes the miraculous look banal, sluicing through curves, braking for slower traffic, and generally working so well that you forget that you're witnessing something akin to magic. All this in a car you can buy right now. My God, the autonomous future is imminent. Cars, as we know them, are obsolete. Are my kids even going to get driver's licenses? My world is rocked. And then, 6 miles later, Super Cruise abruptly cancels itself. I don't know why, the system doesn't explain. Maybe there's not enough visual contrast between the faded lanes and the washed out pavement for the car's cameras to sense its place on the road. Super Cruise prompts me to take the wheel, but I decline just to see what it'll do. In short order, the CT6 slows down, and if I'd let it keep going, it would have come to a stop in the middle of I-95. I resume control, but the car holds a grudge and refuses to unlock Super Cruise until I stop and kill the ignition. So, in another road trip first, I pull into a Wendy's to reboot my car. Back on the road, Super Cruise gets in a groove, often for more than 20 miles at a time. Its onboard cameras, radar, and GPS paint a picture that harmonizes with the LiDAR laser-scanned maps that GM produced for every divided highway in North America, all stored on a hard drive in the trunk. Perhaps the most important component in the car, though, doesn't look at the road. It's a camera that points back at me from atop the steering column. An infrared eye of Sauron staring through my sunglasses to confirm that I'm sentient and looking at the road. When I hold my phone up to check a text, Sauron issues a quick scold, the LED across the top of the steering wheel flashing from green to red. I grab the wheel, look ahead, and the system resumes. This camera, exclusive to Cadillac, is the reason you can take your hands off the wheel, because the car has a way to make sure you haven't climbed into the back seat to play Mario Kart. And this is the contradiction of Super Cruise. When you haven't touched the steering wheel or pedals for 50 miles, it's easy to fall into reverie, your life a waking dream as the trees scroll by. And yet, you've got to remain ready to step in when you're hurtling toward a construction zone at 100 feet per second and have moments to assess and react. You consider whether you're better off than the guy in the F-150. This is the essential conundrum for any driver assist system that can't execute total door-to-door service, which is to say, any of them yet invented. And yet, Super Cruise is an incredible achievement. If you take a moment too long reaching the passenger side floorboard for a bag of Cheetos, the car is there to steer and brake, keeping you from barreling off into a ditch. You're immune from human frailty for a while. I covered 350 or so miles on divided highways, more than half of it with Super Cruise at the wheel. I consequently felt much less fatigued when I got where I was going. And why not? I didn't really drive that far. The consensus among the tech community, automakers, and lawmakers is that fully autonomous cars are imminent. The CT6 with Super Cruise would seem to support that narrative. It's the amazing self-driving Cadillac in dealerships now. But Super Cruise, for all its smarts, also underscores just how hard it is to solve the riddle of driving. We're still in the dawn of the autonomous era. This might be the car equivalent of the first big brick cell phones. A fantastical breakthrough for its moment, a preview of technology that will change the way we live, but also just a first step in a process that will take years to unfold. In 5 more years, where will we be? Handing ever more control to our cars, I'll wager, but still ready for them to hand it right back. And then there's a little paragraph underneath here. It's called the new wheelless, pedalless GM. You've got to be pretty confident in your autonomy game to get rid of the steering wheel and pedals. That's what GM's doing with the Cruise AV, an autonomous version of the Chevy Bolt that will be on the road next year, assuming the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration grants an exception allowing cars without steering wheels to be tested across the country. The Cruise AV has 5 roof-mounted LiDAR lasers, 16 cameras, and 21 radar sensors, along with a hard drive of high-res maps. The car is designed to travel within a geo-fenced area, day or night, in fog or rain. GM isn't saying where that area will be, how far the car will go, or when the technology might be available to retail buyers. But it's betting that 2019 will be the year when paying customers take their first rides in a car that doesn't need you at all. And I like, again, the magazine, Popular Mechanics, and this particular article because it reminds me that life is, and the universe is benevolent, and that success is to be expected. And that's one of the things, by the way, a lot of people referred to Ronald Reagan as being an optimist. And optimism and pessimism are about when there's a doubt. If you have a glass that's half full of water and you look at it and say, is it half full or is it half empty? Well, the optimist will say half full and the pessimist will say half empty. Ronald Reagan had more going for him than just optimism, because again, it implies that he's not sure. Ronald Reagan, like Donald Trump, knows that this is a benevolent universe and knows that success is to be expected, and that's where his entire political philosophy sprang from. And same thing with Donald Trump. And the reason that Donald Trump does what he does is because he knows that this is a benevolent universe, that we can and do know things with certainty, and that there are universal rights and wrongs, and therefore we can be successful. So tomorrow and Sunday, I'm back to reading chapters from Ayn Rand's book, Philosophy, Who Needs It? And until then, thank you very much for joining me. Have a great day.